Banned from LinkedIn. Banned from Facebook. Now broadcasting from the jungles of South America. Find out everything they don't want you to know. This is BizUnLearned.
I've started to slowly realize the flaws of my home country and my home culture, and I'm more open to other ideas, because once you try something for so long and it doesn't work, if you keep trying it, you're an idiot. You're crazy.
Yeah. Hey everybody, it's Cowboy and Mark here, and we've got a new guest. I think this is episode number 5. And this is a very good friend of mine. I hope to be taking some more money off of him very soon playing poker. But he actually is quite good. But he's quite good at many other things too. And that's what we want to talk to him about today. So Seth, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hey everybody, I'm Seth from the United States, originally Ohio, but grew up in Georgia. I have not lived in the United States since 2012, and I basically decided around 2010 that I was ready to have a change of pace and a change of scenery and a change of life and career. I picked up my stuff and left the United States and moved to Mexico.
Okay, and so what was your educational background? Let's start there. What was your educational background?
Maybe you call it a typical American educational background, where you go through the public school system and you make good grades and you keep your GPA high, and then you get into university and you study something that you're supposed to enjoy. And I did study business administration, and I also studied psychology. And I had my university in Georgia, Seth. Right now I'm at one of my restaurants. This is a rooftop bar restaurant in Baños de Agua Santa, Ecuador. It's called Azotea. I'm going to flip the camera around so you can. Here's the sign.
There you go.
I'm here just getting ready for the day. So I have 2 kids. Little brief history of me. I got 2 kids and a wife. My wife is Mexican. I met her when I lived in Mexico for a year, and basically I stole her from her country and brought her with me.
So why did you switch from Mexico to Ecuador? I mean, why?
Oh, man, if you haven't heard, Mexico is run by narcos, and narcos don't follow the rules. So if you want to be a businessman in Mexico, it's a tough situation.
Yeah. So you left from a security situation?
I left from a security standpoint. Like, I didn't feel safe having a business in Mexico, and I did have a business in Mexico. And I saw the writing on the wall. You can't put a prosperous business somewhere where you're going to be extorted for your profits, or you're going to have your family threatened for not paying some kind of security fee, protection fee. A lot of times, Latin America, if you don't already know, they have a very bland system of law where they don't enforce the laws exactly how, England or United States. Latin America's a different beast, as I've said.
Sure, but you didn't just end up in Ecuador. You ended up in like the smallest damn city in Ecuador.
Well, I think we ended up in the city because it's a touristic city and it's very safe, and you blend in here. So people don't take a second glance at foreigners here. They're used to foreigners. They're not.
Right.
They're not. There's some parts of Latin America that there's not a lot of foreigners, and stick out real bad. And you don't ever see foreigners putting businesses in certain places because it probably wouldn't go well for them there.
Sure. I mean, I did 3 degrees. My 3rd degree was business. You did business. And so how is it that I mean, you know it and I know it, but tell everyone else. How is it that, every one of those bullshit stories that we studied in business school is not what we're really doing, right?
Yeah.
So what did you have to forget about in order to be successful here?
Let's see. What did I forget about to be successful? Okay, number one, your expectation of wealth. Again,
Yes.
it, you. I think the my number one thing was, before I had my goals were based on numbers. My goals were based on how much money I had in the bank or what kind of car I drove. You have to remember that at the end of the day, you're trading your time for the money. And if you're not enjoying your time, well, then you're doing the wrong thing. So
Right.
that's the first thing that I don't really teach is that you got to find something you enjoy doing and something that you feel like you're spending your time correctly, and hopefully it's going to get you the type of money that you're looking for as far as financial freedom, because
Sure.
that's the main goal is financial freedom, being able to do what you want with your own time.
Sure. Sure. Mark, I'll tell you a funny COVID story here. Seth has got two bars in this city, bars slash restaurant and a hotel. And so they put us in quarantine, and it's a very secure area here. They get metal roll down doors and shit like that. And I mean, I got two bulletproof doors just trying to get to my house. And so when it was quarantine time, Seth makes the beer. He owns the brewery, so he makes the beer, and he logically built the bar because he wanted to sell the beer, right? So we would end up we would end up at his bar in quarantine. And so when they quarantined us, he just rolled the doors shut and we played poker. And
Gotta keep.
it's like, we're quarantined.
Yeah, Cowboy was my source of income for a while there.
So what do you think, Mark? You got any questions?
Well, no,
Hold on before you.
I'm kind of doing the bits that people have fed back from the other sessions so far from what Seth's been talking about. He said, first of all, you've got to be in a place where you can succeed, and you've got to have enough to be brave enough to change. That's whether it was originally going to Mexico, then it was Ecuador with his wife, and he's changed industries as well in that. And then latterly, you were just talking about the whole trading your time for money, and it was all numbers based in the early part of your career and stuff. And somewhere that it clicked to in what I would call quality of life and what we call passionistas. Mm-hmm. Find something that you really like. That book that, do what you love and the money will follow. And it gets trashed a bit now, but that at least is if you can do that, because you're not going to spend more time on anything more than work for the most part. But if you can involve the family in that, and you can find a lifestyle that's interchangeable, and it's not just about these silos of money, and it's a much more flow-based way of designing your life. They're kind of the two BizUnLearned points that you've already hit smack on.
Two things that you made me think about. Number one is that one thing you have to learn is that you have to find a niche. You have to really you have to analyze where you're going to put your business and who your clientele is, and what need do those people have that you're going to fulfill. That's one thing that's super important is if you go to a town that already has 200-300 restaurants, 200-300 hotels, how are you going to set yourself apart from the competition to where people are going to give you the preference and leave their money at your business? And then number two is your work and home life, like it's real important that people divide those two things. Your work is not who you are. Your work does not mean that this is what you're doing for fun. What you do with your time and at home, I got lucky, and this year landed a new location for my brewery that has a really nice office. And so I really keep my work out of my home. I don't bring any kind of work into my home or into my family circle because that's not what it's about. I keep my work at work, and my home time, I try to spend it with my wife and my kids and have as much time that I can to enjoy with them. And also making time for what's important and not just making time for work. If you think about it, most human beings spend the majority of their waking hours focused on some kind of work, job, money, and you spend your whole life doing that until you're not, and then you don't know how long you have to live because most people aren't retiring until they're in their 60s. And for me, I'm not the type of person that wants to do that. I don't want to spend all my time working until I'm in my 60s to have some measly retirement. And I'm definitely not. I'm not a huge supporter of the trusting your government, depending on them to provide for you and your family once you're old. I don't know how much I would trust in that. I think I've always had the mentality where I'm going to save my own money. I'm going to make my own path. I'm going to build myself up, and I'm not reliant on anyone else or the government to do that for me. I am reliant on people that are my team, the people that work with me, the people that collaborate with me on ideas and on businesses. I have currently, more than 30 employees throughout the businesses that I have here in Ecuador. And one of my main goals was to provide better job opportunities for Latinos in their own country, because why do you think so many Latinos are crossing the border into the United States? Because they want a job where they can make some money, where they can save some money. And that's not happening for the most part in Latin America. They don't have those opportunities to make good money here. It's good money here would be $50 a day, and
Absolutely. Yeah.
be $20 to $25 a day. Which, if you've ever tried to live off of 20 to 25 a day, it's pretty tough. I mean, even in a cheap place like Ecuador. So I think all of us want financial freedom. That way, we have more time to spend with our loved ones and more time to spend on what really matters. I feel like it's very important to try to put a business that is a solution to a current problem or issue. That gives you better chances of succeeding because you know that you've analyzed your market well and you can see what people are looking for. Also, a lot of times people try to invent like totally new things, and that's not the way I look at it. I try to look at things and perfect them. Maybe I didn't invent I didn't invent beer, but I invented new recipes, and I am passionate about making beer. And I feel like because I'm passionate about making beer, I do a good job at it. And that's what I've been doing for the last 8 years. And that has piggybacked me to owning 3 restaurants and a hotel.
Mm-hmm. So you just mentioned it a bit before, Seth, when, here in Britain and the rest of the world, probably, we hear about, people from Latin America, the southern border and all of that. And it's political year as well, isn't it? So you hear all that as a big news story. But here's our call with you down in Ecuador, your restaurants, and Bill was already there, doing what he does in Ecuador as well. So you two are part of the story of the going south, not going north, and you're the opposite of the traditional immigrant story, because the traditional immigrant gets to the States or gets to Europe and has no money and has to save money and depend on a bit of family and pull. You, on the other hand, came with American money to these different markets. That's the opposite trend. That's a Business Unlearned subject. What was the drive, or what's the impact on you for doing that whole process? Because just by working in another country, and then of course you've got a Mexican wife, you're already going tick, 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 tick to the new world person.
So my opinion of that is that the reason we would look at it this way is because you have to look at where the person is from. I was born in the United States. I lived 24 years in the United States. So I was from there with those opportunities. And I took advantage of the opportunities that were in front of me. And I got an education and I saved some money. And I realized that the scenery or the lifestyle that they're trying to convince people that they should have wasn't the one I was really fitting into. So,
The
and
American dream, right? I
the
mean,
American dream, it
the
wasn't happening.
bullshit.
You,
Yeah.
you can't have the American dream anymore because everyone has a gun and people are crazy sometimes and do fucked up things. You don't have other countries that suffer the violence that we suffer with. The American dream was ruined for me because when the Columbine shooting happened in 1999, I was in 7th grade or whatever, and by the time I was in 8th grade, a shooting happened in my own town. So this was, and there's a lot of things about the culture from the United States and the culture from Latin America that are very, very different. The Latinos, they're going to look for the American dream, but when they get there, a lot of them might have a rude reality wake up
Yeah.
or whatever you call it. Realizing, oh shit, everything is expensive. You spend your waking hours working to make money, to save money, to at the end of the day have the same thing you already had in Ecuador. I feel bad for a lot of Latinos, but I understand their point of view and I understand why they're doing it. They're doing it because they're looking for that job. I was never looking for a job because I already had my savings and I was educated enough to be a business owner. Whereas the people here in Ecuador that have money and they have their own business and they have education, they're better off just staying here,
Yes.
making money, enjoying their peaceful, less stress life, lower stress life. In America, I think a lot of people from Latin America, Venezuela, Colombia, Ecuador, Mexico, they just are going to find a better job. That's the bottom line. They want to find a job making $5,000 a month, and for them that is a shit ton of money, and they're
I
able
mean,
to
look at that. $5,000 a month. That's like the top 1% of the country. I mean, it's huge.
in
Yeah,
the
yeah, absolutely.
states nothing.
Yeah, there's nothing. Nothing.
Oh,
Okay.
and one of the things that I have always felt strongly about is income tax. They created all these taxes where they want you to work and then pay them for the right to work because they take care of you and take care of the roads.
Right,
But
right, right.
I don't feel like that's the correct way to tax the population. I feel like putting a higher sales tax, putting a tax on special items like luxury items, that would be a much fairer way to get your
Sure.
money. Like the people that make over $1 million a year, yeah, tax them 30 to 40%. But if you make under 100,000 a year, you should be in the 10% bracket or something like
Yeah,
this.
yeah. I
If
mean,
you if you
I don't mind drinking beer, so I don't mind paying taxes on my beer. But I'm not going to pay school taxes when I don't have kids.
well, I don't think there's any country in the world that you don't pay taxes on stuff you buy, or you don't pay taxes every year to your local governments for owning property. You pay taxes every year to the government for having a title to a vehicle. There's a
Yeah,
ton of ways where the government can install a gold mine, basically, rather than just saying, "Oh, we're going to income tax everybody."
yeah.
And I feel like that's why all the rich people avoid paying taxes. They have a way to basically equal out their expenses with their income, and they don't pay taxes anyway. For
So,
example,
so
you
in
know,
the unlearned perspective, Seth and I have both learned a lot of things down here, and we both know some of the same people. Okay, they're older on in their lives. Okay, they're in their 70s, late 60s, 70s. But they're down here. They're single. So they don't even have wives or nothing. Okay, they're by themselves, but they came down here. And we know at least between the two of us, I mean, a few people that have said they've got children back home in America, and they said we're going to go back, we're going to spend the rest of our lives in America, and that's how we're going to finish our lives. And 6 months later, it's like, what the fuck, man? I thought you were going to fucking America to spend the rest of your life there. And they're like, fuck America. I'm dying here. They come back. They come back here.
A lot of people can't go into that rat race that we call the American system. It's so extremely different in Latin America and North America that if you get a breath of fresh air coming to Latin America, you might like it and you might not ever want to change it back. And that's
Are
kind of
they
what happens
listening?
probably Cowboy and I. We've seen the grass is greener on the other side, and we're not interested in just that. Oh, I can get a job making $10,000 a month. Like
Yeah.
I don't care at all about that. I am
Yeah.
super happy doing what I'm doing here, and sometimes I don't even make money. You know, I mean, some months you have to understand that business is like a wave, and you're going to have highs and lows. And some months when you have 5 businesses and it's low in all of them, you're kind of like, oh shoot, you start to get worried. You don't know what to do, and those are the times where you better have planned well how to cut your losses, how to stop the bleeding, and how to be prepared for the instability and the unexpected. That if you're going to be
Yeah.
a businessman, take this from me: be prepared for the unexpected and unstable situations, politically, environmentally, catastrophes, tsunamis, earthquakes, you name it, hurricanes. Anything can happen, and it can affect your business. And if you have 35 employees and you have $5,000 a month in rent to pay and all this stuff, if your sales don't reach that certain amount, you're going to be taking out money from your savings account to pay that stuff just to break even.
Sure.
So,
Sure. Well,
business.
that's the whole adage, right? Calm seas never made a seasoned sailor, right?
True.
That type of thing. And but really in the unlearned category, I mean, you and I looked at America, I mean, for various reasons. Okay, of course. Okay. But we looked at America and said, screw this. We're out of here. But we adapted our skills to a different environment and kept going.
I,
You
I
know?
hope I hope to all the people that watch this podcast, they hear from us, me and you, Cowboy, that Latin America is not what you probably expect. It's not. It's not a third world country. It
No.
actually, to me, the United States is more of a third world country, just given the fact the way people act, the way people treat each other, the way the police treat people, the way the government treats people. All this, to me, is not going in the right direction there. Unfortunately, I'm not saying I give up on them. I'm not saying that there's no hope, but honestly, the system of voting between red or blue your whole life is not a democracy. The system of taxing everyone to the brim for the money that you spend your time trading, we call work, is not, to me, a legitimate way to fund your government. And I think that Ecuador and Mexico and a lot of other countries, they don't have income tax. You
No.
don't. I make money, and I don't pay the government to make money. I pay
Yeah.
them what I sell, and there's a lot of ways to get
Well,
around not paying.
down here, see, it's like I'm making money online. Do I pay taxes here? No, I don't. Okay, because I don't work for an Ecuadorian company. Okay,
You're
but
not making
they're
money
like,
in the United
you get a
States.
maid, you get this, you get that, and you buy things, so you pay our taxes that way. That's what they're happy with. Okay,
Well, I feel like where you spend your money is a direct. I mean, everyone has the right to spend money where they want, and
right.
where money is who you're supporting. So if I'm paying Starbucks, or if I'm going to McDonald's, or if I'm going to KFC, I'm supporting those companies. If I drink Coca-Cola, if I'm supporting those companies. Instead, if I choose to go local, spend the money within my own community, hire local, like do things that stimulate your own economy. I mean, I know that's in America. That's how they teach you. They're big capitalists or big corporations. There's a ton of money, a ton of money. I think the United States has some of the most disposable incomes in the world, where people make enough money to be able to go out and buy new cars and buy houses and all this stuff. But I think recently the inflation has caught up to our society in the United States, and it's not even affordable anymore. Even if you do make $100,000 a year, are you still going to be able to afford a house and a car
No,
and a happy life? Maybe,
right.
maybe.
You know, but see that was the big kicker, and Mark, we've seen it down here. It's just that you know sometimes unlearning meant there's a propaganda machine called Hollywood, okay, and everybody and a lot of Latinos down here think the streets are paved in gold in America. Okay. And it's like, no. Okay. So that is a big unlearning aspect. It's like, it's not like that. Okay. It's like,
Well, hold on. You have to understand from the Latin American point of view, it still is like that because they're not used to the organization. And, there's a lot of good things about the United States that is undeniable. Like,
sure.
we do have a lot of, we have a,
I don't go with that we stuff. Okay.
well, the United States sets up as organized as possible. Sure, it's not always as organized as you'd hope for, but they do try to keep. They're strict with the laws. They try to fight crime. I mean,
Yeah, it's the most
good intention.
criminalized country in the world. They have more prisoners than any population in the world.
They do, and that's what we sacrifice is they're allowed to put you in jail, and then you have to prove yourself innocent. Which that's not how it's supposed to be. They shouldn't be able to just put you in jail because they accuse you of something. They should definitely have to have evidence building up to prove their case, and a lot of times that's not the case anymore.
Right. you know so it's definitely different, and I try to explain to people here, okay, and I'm like, listen, if you really want to know what's going on, look at the people leaving an area, not at the people going into an area. All right. When I
Yeah.
wrote my Insane Ukraine book in 2014, less than 0.5% of Americans had ever lived in another country. Now it's up to 3% and climbing. But here's the deal: when the ship is sinking, follow the fucking rats.
But put this one in from if you look at, I grew up, Seth, as a very pro-American kid. When I got to America in '79 and had my first Dairy Queen, this was like,
Dairy Queen, yes.
Hold on.
I had found my Nirvana in 1979, and the posters, the boy in New York with the spaghetti on his head on, I'd never seen things like this. And so I developed over years this absolute love of the States. And then I worked there, based mainly in Arkansas, around 20 years ago, 2020. And at that time, the guy that we were working with, he was starting to move towards green card, and we were trying for a baby and the likes, and we'd lost a couple early on. And that's when I said to my wife, you know what? I don't wanna do the green card now, because I could feel a change. So this is 20 years ago, that it wasn't like the America that I fell in love with as a kid and spent a lot of time bringing American companies to the US but changing the culture for the UK market. So suddenly I was starting to get what I wanted. And one of the issues was even things like friends of ours that were based in the States, and, like having a baby, I think cost them about $15,000. That's if it went okay. Because in the UK, as an older society, we've now got a lot of people who went to places like Australia, but they're now coming back because the Australians have got the healthcare system more like the US, which again is the thing that bankrupts most Americans and creates more splits in families. So us as the little old country that lost its empire 70 years ago, after the war, and all the stuff that the States is going through, we've lived that path to a degree and are now seeing the opposite. Because little old England with low crime for the most, you don't get shot in England. You might get stabbed if you go looking for it, but you don't get shot. But then the health piece, and because I grew up again very pro-American, I believed in that American health system. But now, and you told me the other day, Bill, if you take out the insurance companies out of that, the real cost of the health is a fraction of it. So I'm now I was going to America. If it hadn't rained every day when we went back to Vancouver, and Canada's different, but my Irish wife was not going to go somewhere where it rained every bloody day like Ireland. She wasn't. So we looked at these things.
He's not completely English. He lives in Liverpool.
We kind of came back to then because we've travelled to a lot of places, but actually, and England's got expensive and things, but it's still in keeping with our longer term, where the States has seemingly lurched so far away from the American dream. You two are living examples of the decisions you've made to change things.
I mean, what was there a moment you just said, fuck this, I'm out? Was there one moment or just accumulation of shit?
I like what Mark says, that I think 40 to 50 years ago, America was very different. The United States was very different. We were kind of in a good, prosperous era. After the dot-com bubble, which really stimulated America in a new way, after the dot-com bubble, we also had 9/11. So those two things kind of happened simultaneously. And 9/11 was the turning point for the American society on what they were willing to accept. And yeah, I feel like from the early 2000s, it just progressed in a direction. By the time I was in 2010, 11, and 12, I realized, man, this is just backwards. Like everything that they try to teach you to do, like, oh, make money, pay taxes, buy a house, all this. I'm like, I don't know. I felt like they were lying to me. I felt like they were deceiving me, and it wasn't going to work out the way they tell you it's going to work out. So I said, you know what? I can't do this anymore. I want to go. I had already traveled a little bit. I went to Europe in 2008. I went to Costa Rica once, and probably between that time and 2012. So I had seen kind of how other countries operated, and I realized, okay, wait a minute. It's not all countries aren't the same. All countries are ran differently and have different culture and the way people act and the way people treat each other. I've never lived in a better place than where I'm at right now, where people say good morning to each other. Like right now, I have 2 employees who just walked in, and every day you're Buenos dias, Don Enrique. Buenos dias, Alex. Every day you have a different culture. You say. I mean, they do this in the U.S. too, but not everywhere. Maybe in the South, they have a little more hospitality, but in California, on the other hand, it's very cold and dry, and it's not necessarily any kind of friendship to do with work. Whereas here, people, I think one thing that you can always try to take is treat people like people. Don't treat people like things. Treat people like human beings with feelings, because we all have them.
I find extremely interesting. I've known Seth since 2018, about 6 years. Okay, pretty much spot on 6 years. One, he didn't have his bar 6 years ago. He didn't have the hotel. He didn't have the other bar and then the other bar. Okay, he's grown this much in 6 years. He's done a really good growth. Okay, he was selling beer to the bar that I was drinking at, and I'd only been here about 2 weeks. And so one, I've seen his growth there. But the other thing that I find extremely interesting is I've only known him for 6 years, but him and I left America the same damn year.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Because we were both like, that's it. we're out of here. Okay?
The straw that broke the camel's back for me really was when when you can catch your own government doing stuff that's illegal, which I'm sure that our friend over here Cowboy has, and I have too. If your government's doing stuff that's illegal and there's really no way to get justice, then what do? It's just like you either leave or you suffer. And I was tired of suffering. I'm not going to suffer and put up with injustices in the system. You know, all countries have their flaws. There's injustices here in Ecuador too, but they don't have a big prison population. They're not putting people in
No.
jail for money. And sure, it's very different. You know, you can't, like here in Ecuador, you don't even have, it's not even the clearest laws of self-defense.
No, it
Like
isn't. Yeah.
some of the basic laws that we have in North America are you can defend yourself to the death in situations, you know, whereas here they teach you to like try to run away. You know, they're like,
Yeah.
no, don't fight, run, get away from the problem. You know, and I feel like it's true. If people were taught to get away from the problem instead of fight, it kind of changes the mentality of the person. You know, and I've started to slowly realize the flaws of my home country and my home culture, and I'm more open to other ideas because once you try something for so long and it doesn't work, if you keep trying it, you're an idiot. You're
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah. Doing over and over again, expecting different results, you're dumb, right? So,
Yeah,
I
you're crazy.
mean,
Losing
I
your mind.
remember, I remember Seth 6 years ago. I carried this big knife, like, right? And Seth is like, "You're gonna get arrested." Right? Sometimes I even get a gun, right? And Seth is like, "You're gonna get arrested." And then the next thing he saw me, the cops are. I'm in the car. The cops are dropping me off outside his bar, and he's like, "Okay, fuck it, I give up." Okay, he's like, because it's community policing here. They're just like, we know he's a good guy. All right, he doesn't do things exactly right, but okay. So unlearning becomes part of the culture too. Like Seth alluded to at the very beginning, it has to be part of the culture also. And you have to adapt to your culture, these types of things. I mean, so in wrapping up here, have
Oh,
you
Bill, you
seen
did the
that?
wrap up
And,
before the hat
yeah,
reminder.
I did the wrap up without the hat
This,
reminder.
this Seth,
So
this Seth,
so Seth,
when the
did
Englishman
you
puts his
hear
hat on,
my
it's
my knife and gun example and the cops dropped me off at your bar? Did you
I
hear
was
that?
there. I was still there listening, and you know what? It's funny because it's true. You have to a lot of times unlearning the culture, what you're taught. It's unlearning those core things that maybe make like Cowboy over there carrying his big Bowie knife around everywhere he goes. He that's who he is, and he had to realize. I mean, I understand why he did that, but at the same time, here the culture's different, the society thinks differently, and if you do certain things like you're back home, they're going to take that offensively.
Yeah.
And so unlearning that culture and accepting that things are different wherever you happen to migrate to. So unlearning those things and being open-minded and able to evolve and change and adapt are all really good qualities or characteristics that a individual can have. Being malleable, you know.
Yes. Yes.
so when you were
It
starting off
doesn't mean
lines
that
there,
the
what the hat
business skills
said
that we
was
learned are bad.
this is the bit where we do the wrap up so that we can make some business. And this was my only way of telling the cowboy we need to get off this call in 5 bloody minutes when the Englishman doffs his cap, as they say.
Well, gentlemen, I appreciate your company and your time talking today. I hope that whoever watches this podcast learns something and hears a little bit of a personal experience from a migrant from America to
Yeah.
Latin America. Because that's what I am. I'm not gonna beef it. I'm not calling myself an expat. I'm a migrant, just like those Latinos that are coming from here to go to the United States. I did the same thing, like you said. I reversed it, and I'm happy. I'm happier here. I don't need to go back there to be happy, and I feel like when people get a taste of what really makes them happy, they they don't forget it, and they change.
And just in the wrap up, then, Seth, because I've got about 6 or 7 points that you made. You got to be in a place where you can succeed and be brave enough to change. You're trading your time for money in the early part of your career, and you really had to look for that quality of life thing, that thing that you keep your business and life separately, but at the same token, you're doing something that you really enjoy. But I think for me, the one, because it fits with every client we talk to now, the in thing that is all marketing speak is about product market fit. And all that really means is doing the research and finding out, as you said as well, are you offering a solution to a current problem? And your whole life from when you left the States, went to Mexico, met your lady, go to Ecuador, you had to do that. So many people are just diving into things and they aren't, and you're back to your territory, Bill, they are not doing the planning first to then hit the ground running. And that's got to be, because it hits all the points that Seth's been talking about. It's a fantastic, thank you for your time, Seth. It was terrific. You can see the cheeky smile in everything that you're saying through this. I'll take the cheeky smile. That's the win.
Hey, Mark, so do you still live in the United States, or did you move back to England?
No, we're back in the UK because I had that sliding door moment, didn't I? And then I told him some things that he was doing. He's a New Yorker in Arkansas, and I told him he'd fire me because I didn't go there for a job. I went there to build something and, take the risk. And sure enough, he did fire me after 2 years, but we made a lot of money together. But it was driving a bloody big Winnebago through that southern belt, through, Arkansas, Oklahoma. I love terrific people. But the one thing, whilst on the one hand, it's the only country in the world I can do that trip with the Winnebago, and try doing that in the UK.
Without papers.
If you try and drive a Winnebago in the UK, it'll take you 30 miles to turn it around because the roads are so small. But at the same token, I had to drive that bloody big bus as though any incident I could get involved with, whilst my English accent, normally they all took he's only an Englishman. But I was prepared.
You're not from here, are you?
Every truck in Arkansas had a rifle in the back. A bloody rifle?
Yeah. Yes, sir. Yep. So, I think the perception of the English in America, like we understand that was our home country as well, our founding fathers. And this whole, it sucks, but the whole problem is because of that war that we had for independence is when we wrote this Constitution and we put all these laws into place that was hundreds of years ago. That shouldn't even, I wish that update that Constitution.
We may need to look at it.
You know what? I'll leave you with this. Now here's stupidity in its finest. Okay, I'll leave you with this. We had the war. I said we. I fucked up. Okay, America had the war with the British because of taxation without representation. England wanted America to pay taxes to England, even though they were in America. You know what? The only major country left in the world that fucking does that today is America. Why? Because no one's fucking learned from history. Okay? Nobody has fucking learned from history. Okay? England doesn't even do that anymore. Okay?
No, we don't. Well, Seth, terrific talking to you. I'd love to talk to you again sometime. Absolutely, Seth. Love the session.
I hope so. Thank you, man.
Pleasure.
All right, everybody listening to this, remember to like, comment, share, subscribe. We love the love, babies.
Englishman out. See you later.
Later.
Remember to like, comment, share, and hit the subscribe button. That helps us grow our channel, which helps us get larger guests.